Hey, good evening, everybody. It's a little bit different background here. I'm actually down in my workshop, but I just felt it was necessary to maybe talk about a couple things. Um, and like I said, I'm going to try to do a little bit more of these videos. I know I've been a little behind. So if you're coming back, if this is your first time here, welcome. If you're a long time subscriber, I appreciate it. And if you find any of this information pertinent, please pass it on to your friends. Um, I want to talk about some of the recent events that have been coming on because with all the unrest on the planet and everything like that, um, that we've been getting some threats from China and Iran regarding cyber attacks. I mean, I'm not sure about actual physical attacks on our country, how that would if that would play out, or I'm not going to touch on that right now. That's really not the purpose of this, but this could be a real issue, and I I tend to believe that maybe some things have already been happening, maybe some test runs. There's been some things over the last years, some large companies having major cyber attacks. Um, so I tend to think some of these might have been trial runs by whether it's rogue governments or hackers or whatever, maybe even sponsored by these some of our enemies. But there's been some more realistic threats from China and Iran recently about bringing down our power grid. And to be honest, I know a lot of people think that's kind of crazy theory and things like that, but it's really not. I think there's basically 9 power stations in America that if you took them out, it would basically bring the entire grid down. And I believe Texas might be on its own grid if I recall right. It's been a little while since I've read some of that stuff, but it's just something I want to bring to your attention because you don't hear this stuff on the mainstream media. And if you do, that a lot of this stuff is kind of brushed aside as kook theory and conspiracy theory stuff like that. So it's just something we really probably should bring to light. I know and a lot of the other proper channels have been talking about things like that. So this isn't like new news, but I'd like to just kind of bring it to our attention here for people that maybe don't follow along with this stuff as much. And so this could be a real threat. And, and by bringing down our power grid, it's pretty fragile as it is. And if you don't think so, just kind of refer to some of the things, even with like California, they have rolling blackouts now. They're telling people not to charge their cars. They tell you to buy an electric car, then tell you can't charge it. So I guess they pretty much want you walking around California or on a, dig your old 10-speed out of the shed. So we know that the grid is already kind of fragile in some respects. A lot of it hasn't been updated in many, many years. And there's a lot of things you can read about this. This isn't like kook theory kind of thing. If you can dive in and do your research. And I have read up. I'm not an expert at it per se, but I understand it. Um, and I don't think people understand the consequences. If our power grid went down, we are 100% relying on that. Because very few people nowadays in this country can do anything. I mean, a lot of people can barely change a light bulb. They're not going to survive when there's no power. Um, Most people only keep 2-3 days max of food in their house. They're going to the grocery store every day. If there's no power, them grocery stores ain't getting nothing. Because I don't know if a lot of you know this. There's a lot of what they call just-in-time delivery for grocery stores, where that means they only keep there's about maybe 3 days of food, I think, max in most grocery stores. Maybe not even that much. Because I remember I worked in a grocery store when I was a teenager, and even then, and that's many, many years ago, we're not going to go into how far that was back, but I can remember even then, I mean, there was some stock in the back, but there wasn't that much. I mean, that stuff came in on a truck and it was pretty much put out that day. And then the next day, another truck would roll in there. Well, if the grid goes down, you don't got nothing. There's no trucks moving, and if a real EMP actually struck, which this is going to be more, I would think more of the cyber attack, which will bring basically our computer systems down, but it's still going to affect trucking. It's going to affect anywhere you work, obviously. The grocery stores are going to have nothing. And even what they do have, the refrigerated section, how long is that going to last? I doubt many of them have any backup generators to last any decent amount of time. And we saw that during, even some of the, like the power outages back in, when we have storms and stuff. So they're losing stuff in a short period of time. So the same thing's going to happen to your house. So, that's something to keep in mind. I mean, if you have, a large freezer in your basement, you have your refrigerator upstairs. Do you have a way to keep that powered if your power goes out? Now, this may never happen. I can't say for sure if it is or isn't. At this point of the game, I ain't surprised by nothing. I mean, you know, I believe pretty much anything that they're going to tell us that I know a lot of it's saber rattling, things like that. I get that. And, we need to keep that in mind, and we can't live in fear of this stuff. But preparing for something major like this, as far as like a grid down scenario, cyber attack on our power grid, even being prepared for that now can even help you out in a short-term power outage. I learned this last year. If you've been around here for a while, you'll know that last year we lost power for about 12 days, which is the longest I've ever been out without power. Was it difficult? Yes, but was it? It was not. It wasn't catastrophic, but it was only a short period of time. I could still go places and get things I needed. It was just my particular house because of some storm damage that it took a little while to get corrected. Now, did I have some systems already in place? Yes, and it was a good test run for us. I mean, I found a lot of holes, but I also found a lot of things that I was actually happy that I had done that ahead of time. I had extra fuel on hand for my generators. I literally did not lose one refrigerated item, nothing in my freezer. And you don't have to even run them 24 hours a day. I think if you go back, I did a video on that, and maybe I'll do another one about that, and some of the ideas that some of the things I implemented during that. And I apologize if the lighting's not real good down here. I'm actually in my basement, so it's not real optimal down here. So there might be a little bit of a shadow on me. But it's definitely something to think about, because if you can get prepared now for those small things, it may help in the long run. Now, I can't tell you if the power grid will be out for 2 days, a week, a month, a year, and there's a lot of estimates that if the power grid actually went down for a year, we would lose a good 90% of our population within a year. That's been estimated. That's not a number that I came up with. That's a number that's out there. You can look those stats up. And if you live anywhere near a city, which I do kind of like, not a major city, but there's a small, the chaos that is going to ensue after about 2 or 3 days, you won't want to be anywhere near there, so you're going to have a plan to get out of your neighborhood, unless your neighborhood is somehow fortified and you have, you live around, 100 Navy SEALs maybe, but, otherwise it's going to be sketchy. It's really something to think about. So, maybe start thinking about getting yourself a generator if you can afford that. Stock up on non-perishable foods, things you can eat out of a can. If it gets really bad and you don't have any power, you want something you can still prepare. Water's a big issue. If the power plants go down, the water treatment plants, especially if you live in town, or if you're on the water grid system with your city water, whatever, it's you're not going to have it. And not only that, your toilet's not going to flush. So for you people living in the country that have septic systems and wells, you still have to have a way to power that well pump. So even if you could get a way to tie your generator in, which I know many of you probably have home generators. I mean, if you're into preparedness, you're probably one step ahead of a lot of people. But it's definitely something to think about if you're not. Start getting those, you got to get into that mindset of being ready for these things to happen. And I know this is kind of more doomsday scenario kind of stuff. And I'm not trying to scare anybody on here. I'm really not. But, maybe have some of your things in order. Cause I'll tell you the truth. One of the things that we had that really got us through, because our house is all electric. Now we got lucky because we weren't in the cold weather, but, I have my camping stuff handy at all times. I mean, I consider my camping gear kind of a backup gear for things. And I was able to pull out my little 2-burner Coleman stove, and I used it for the entire 12 days. I heated water on it. That's how we took showers every morning. I mean, obviously we cooked our meals on there. Just that did the trick for us. I mean, it really was a big help. And I kept those, I have the little green propane, tanks. You pick them up at Walmart, sporting goods stores, or whatever. And I keep them on hand here. We also use them when we go camping and things like that, but it was nice having that, that alternative. Do you have batteries for your flashlight? A lot of people, man, I know, in past, the batteries would go out in the flashlight and we'd be hunting all over the house. I don't have that problem no more. Pick yourself up some extra batteries. Even candles, things like that. that stuff's always good just for a basic power outage. Even if you're, like I said, you have a storm in your house or in your neighborhood and power's out for a day, all that stuff will come in handy. But if it goes down long term, you definitely, candles are only going to last so long. I get it. But maybe try to have some kind of a contingency plan, maybe have somewhere to go. If you have someone that's, maybe somebody in your family is a little bit more ahead of the game, maybe they have a whole house generator, things like that. So these are all things to consider. And like I said, I don't want to get anybody frightened, but the unrest right now on our planet is a little bit scary right now for many people. I mean, myself included. I mean, I don't like to see this kind of stuff. I really think I think it's unbelievable what's going on. I mean, just in general. So, you get your preparedness plan in order, whether, and if you have a bug out plan, whatever that is, if you have a place you're planning on going, maybe now's the time to start, getting those things in order a little bit more, because you definitely don't want to be, I mean, if you live in a city, it's going to be a complete chaotic nightmare. I really believe that. But these are just some ideas, and something that I don't really talk about a lot, but it's something you might want to consider is your spiritual preparedness. And I think for many that is a big part of a lot of people that I know in the, like, the preparedness, homesteading lifestyle, are also are spiritually prepared too, and it's something to think about. I don't want to get preachy here, but maybe it can kind of bring some peace in some of these difficult times. So if that's something if that helps you out, definitely embrace those ideas and pursue them, because we are living in some biblical times when you really break it down. It's kind of following that. And like I said, I'm not a theologian. I'm not an expert on on such matters, really. Just I know where my beliefs lies, things like that. But it's also something to consider, because, like I said, with all this uncertainty, and I know a lot of people are probably scared, but I also know a lot of people have their heads in the sand too, and just think that the government's going to save them, when things go bad. But that may not be the case, And on top of everything else, there, we also have, we're seeing what our government is actually capable of. If you look at even what's going on right now in Texas, whatever your thoughts are on the border, to me, there's only one way you should be thinking about this, but that's a whole issue for another video. But you can kind of see our government is willing to actually go after their own people who are trying to protect their homes and their communities and things like that. So if you think in a really major breakdown that they're coming to save you, you might as well forget about it, because that's not going to happen. You're your own first responder, as I know Mike Glover over at Field Craft Survival always says, and he is right about that. You have to protect yourself. You have to be ready. So that starts with getting your things in order at home. But I really would want you guys to start thinking about these things, because things are getting a little bit real, as they say, with a lot of this. And now that we are getting threats from some of our enemy nations, and especially with the things that are going on like right now with Iran, I'm sure they've already infiltrated our cyber systems, our utilities, things like that. There's no doubt that's already been proven. We already know that. We already know that there's a lot of infiltration by even these rogue governments. The Chinese are buying up farmland in America. They hold, I couldn't even tell you how many hundreds of thousands of acres. They're in charge of a lot of our food, doing a lot of our food processing plants. Think about that. If they decide they're gonna come after America, which the whole China thing is a little bit sketchy to me, because we are one of their major importers. We basically keep their economy alive, and their economy's not doing well. So I don't know. I don't want to tell you things are going to happen. I just think you should be prepared for if they happen, which is the whole purpose of this whole channel anyway. So it's just something to think about. When you, like I said, I always say, when you go to the store, you can grab a couple extra things, but start thinking about those, the real scenarios that could happen. Because, I mean, it could be a short-term event and things can be corrected. But if it's something major, it could last a long period of time. And if it does, there's going to be a lot of desperate folks. They're going to be looking for people like you that have a few extra things stored up, because they didn't do it. So, they're going to come to the people that did. So be prepared for that. maybe you have your security plans in order a little bit too. Maybe get to know your neighbors a little bit better if you can. Maybe talk to them about, maybe a community plan for if there's social unrest. It's a real possibility because eventually the cities are going to destroy themselves and they're going to start moving out to the country. So you may be safe for a little while and you might be insulated a little bit, but eventually they're going to work their way out there because they're going to get desperate. And when neighbors start killing neighbors just to feed their kids, it's going to get, it's not going to be a good time for anybody. So at some point, those resources are going to run out. They're going to start moving. So get with the things you need, ahead of time if you can. I know a lot of people right now are having a tough time because everything is so expensive, but try to find spots in your budget. If you have to make some sacrifices to raise a little extra capital, maybe stay out of Starbucks, for that month and take that money, put it towards some extra stuff, or, maybe you have some streaming services you don't really use, cancel those things, take that money, put it towards something that's a little more worthwhile. But, like I said, this is something to think about. Dive into it a little bit more if you have a chance. And there's plenty of things. I mean, there's plenty of things that have been out there about this. There's a lot of, there's even some fiction novels that have been written about these kind of scenarios. So, and some of them are fairly realistic. I mean, obviously there's there's going to be some, things that are a little bit maybe far-fetched or whatever, but, some of them are pretty, paint a kind of a picture of what could possibly happen. So, definitely look into that also. But, like I said, man, whatever you guys can do to get yourselves ahead, definitely try to do that, because I think I think 2024 is going to be a bumpy ride, and it's already starting to look like it's, it's getting off to, a pretty good start for that. And I don't want to see anybody struggling. We don't just want to survive; we want to thrive if we can. So anyway, do what you can. Get some, if you can learn some new skills. Maybe if you have some skills, you could maybe make a few extra bucks to, get you some extra things. Take advantage of that now. If you have, garden season is coming up here in a few months. Get your stuff ahead of time. You never know when things are going to get down. There's a lot of attacks on these cargo ships overseas. They're bringing stuff here too. And whether they're carrying fuel, whether they're carrying goods. If it keeps happening, it's going to affect us. And if all-out war, which is already broke out, but I mean, if it gets on some massive scale, it's going to affect us. It's going to affect the supply chain, which we saw that during COVID. That wasn't even because of a war. So you see what could happen with that. When they start attacking things, people aren't going to if you're working on a cargo ship, you're not going to go to work if they keep bombing them every time you get in them. So that's going to affect things a lot. So anyway, think about that. I'm going to try to get another one of these. Keep these videos coming. There's some other topics I'd like to talk about. Just gosh, almost where do you begin? There's so much going on in the world now. It's actually hard to come up with a good starting point at this point because it's all over the place. But anyway, take care of yourselves. Do what you can to get ready. Keep your head up. And just keep at it. And I will see you guys next time. God bless everybody, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks for sticking around.